You can go and flip anywhere. You can go do BRRRRs anywhere. You can do long-term rentals, short-term rentals. You can do these anywhere and it will work. But if you start comparing stats and you'll say, I'll list a city because I don't want to blacklist anybody or any cities, but you go and I've been throwing New Jersey under the bus all the time, but you go and do like a rental in New Jersey versus a rental in Cleveland, right? Or Newark versus Cleveland. Then what you're going to find is it's going to have a different rent to value ratio, right? It's going to have that 1% rule, which I don't like at all. It's not a good metric. I don't like to do, but you're going to see a different cash flow in just a long-term rental. So you're going to find that certain markets are going to work better for short long-term rentals. You're going to find some work better for short-term rentals. Like I said, I don't like to, especially on podcasts, give out specific markets. I'll tell you where I work, but I do different strategies in different cities.
Welcome back to Real Estate Roundtable, where we sit down with the movers, the shakers, and the game changers who are shaping today's real estate market and helping us see opportunities where most people see borders. Now imagine this, you're living in Canada. You want to build a wealth through real estate, but local prices are climbing, taxes are heavy, and cash flow is thin. What do you do? Today's guest decided to look south and turn the bold move into a thriving cross-border investment career. Joining me today is Glen Sutherland, Canadian real estate investor, educator, and the host of A Canadian Investing in the USA, a hit podcast and YouTube channel that's become the go-to resource for investors looking to expand beyond their borders. He's here to break down how Canadians can successfully invest in U.S. real estate legally, profitably, and with confidence, even from thousands of miles away. Glen, welcome to the Real Estate Roundtable.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for this. And also, I want to make sure that if people don't like, I'm tuning out because this is all going to be Canadian stuff. Like I'm doing this from a different country. If you just want to do this in a different state, you can take and apply all the same stuff. So don't go running away yet. We're going to make sure that this will apply to people just going state to state too.
That's awesome, man. I love how you made something that seems complicated to cross-border investing sound completely doable. Let's start at the beginning. Take us back to Cambridge, Ontario. What first drew you into real estate, and how did that curiosity evolve into looking across the border?
I'll try and do this. I don't want to spend the whole hour doing this, so I'll go through this pretty quickly. But the way it started, like my parents had a rental property, a duplex. It's actually a house we used to live in. They duplexed it after we lived in it. And I just got used to fixing stuff and everything else. And you get to a certain point, finished college, I bought my first house. Back, we're talking, I don't know timelines, but it went up in value. I refinanced it. I pulled out some money and I'm like, let's buy a piece of real estate myself. Back then, I didn't know anything about actually doing real estate properly. I just figured if I start with this $200,000 apartment, and if I just pay it off and in 25, 30 years, I'll have at least 200,000, right? It makes sense rationally. I'm like, I don't understand how to actually do proper real estate investing at that point, but I'm like, I'll do that. So I refinanced the property. I bought they call it a quad. So you get a fourth of a building. And so I bought that in Waterloo, Ontario. And I had the worst tenants. I was at the basically eviction court all the time. I owned the place for 2 years, and I think I was there 5 times with evicting different people. I was horrible at screening people. I'm way too trusting. And still to this day, I'm your strengths, your weaknesses. That's not my strength. But anyway, I went and did that. I said I'd never do real estate again. Sold the place and got this check at closing, and it was for I think $40,000 more than I put into the property, and I only owned it for 2 years. And I went, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I made a ton of mistakes. But there's got to be, there's something here. I don't know what it is, but there's something here. I started listening to podcasts a ton. Like back then, we're talking pre-COVID times. I'm not going to name names, but there's like the top 5 and they're all American. There was no Canadian podcast on real estate at that point. So I was just soaking in the US stuff, and I went and bought a duplex, and then a single family and a single family and another duplex and another single family. And I had to sell one to get another one. And basically the bank would let me hold 4 or 5 at a time, depending on their prices. And they're like, that's the most you can ever get. And I'm just like trying to do the math. I'm like, how do I retire? Like, how do I quit my job? Like, how do I, you're like, oh, I just need this much cash flow, this many properties. But I'm like, if you're going to limit me to 4 or 5, how do I actually do this? How do I go there? And I went, these podcasts, there's something here too. I don't understand how to do lending in the US. I don't understand how to do any creative stuff in the US. I don't even understand how to run a construction company, renovate these properties from a different country. But I went, you know what? I'll go as far as I can go. And whenever I get stuck, I'll find somebody else who knows what to do, and we'll just keep working on it. So I took a home equity line of credit on my personal house, bought a $90,000 property in Huntsville, Alabama. Was the first one. And I was like, basically, it started renting and it was going. And I'm like, okay, we should probably figure out this mortgage thing. We should figure something out. And we talked to the real estate agent. They talked to the other people anyway. You figure something out. And I'm like, okay, I got referred to these people in Kansas City. And they're just like, hey, we're renovating all these houses. And what we could do is take your loan on the first place, or like your money you put in the first place, refinance that and get you 2 other properties. So with this same money, you now have 3 properties. And so you can like basically move your cash flow. And I'm like, okay, this makes sense. Refinanced it, hit a wall. I'm like, okay, I got 3 properties now, cash flowing, I don't know, $1,200-$1,300 a month. And I'm like, what do we do now? I ran out of money. I'm stuck. I'm like, I put my money for my line of credit down there and to spread it, but I'm like, still not doing real estate right. I'm like, this isn't how it's supposed to go. So I went, okay, let's do some more research, do some actual coaching, learn some actual stuff. And I'm like, okay, now I'm going to start off by doing some BRRRRs. So I went and sold one of my Canadian properties, and I started buying more properties in Huntsville. And we refinanced those properties, and some of them we did perfect BRRRRs on. And then we started flipping properties, and it was going pretty good. But I'm like, the hard part about Huntsville is it was so hard to make the numbers work. Like, it's a really strong market, and just like I couldn't get the ratios I was looking for. Like, I wanted to make a certain amount of money on a flip, and it was just so tight. And I'm like, I still love that market, but it's so hard to buy. If you're already in there, you're doing awesome. So anyway, I moved to Indianapolis and started working in Indianapolis, and we started doing projects there, and we started doing flips, and we started doing BRRRRs. And I don't remember what ended up happening. I think I met some people, got changed, got into doing it in Ohio. And then we started getting into more creative stuff. We started doing sub 2s. We started doing a lot of lease options. I said, the heck with doing rentals, long-term rentals. I'm like, I want lease options. I'm like, I want to get the 3 paydays. And so everything that was a long-term one was a lease option. And then we got into sub 2s, like I said, and we got into doing land contracts on purchases and on sales. And it just started growing. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm maxing out the contractors that I have in Ohio. So I'm like, we were doing about 40 renovations a year.
Wow.
On the
big number.
Yeah.
For a guy that's not in construction, that's a big number.
Yeah. So we're like, okay, what's the next step? Where do we go from here? And I'm like, okay, let's expand. I'm like, I built a system. First of all, you get overwhelmed. You basically have a panic attack. You then have to take some time, look at what you've done, and make it organized, because you just can't keep this up. So then once you got it organized and got a nice system, it's rolling. I'm like, okay, now let's expand. Let's go into Kansas City deeper. I had 2 properties, or 2 or 3 properties there at the time. Let's go there. We went and flew in to buy 33 single family homes in a portfolio and grew that. And then we went into Detroit, went into Cleveland, went into Toledo, went into Jacksonville, Florida. And down,
I don't know if you guys are listening to this, but that's at least how many, like 4 or 5 states already?
Yeah.
This is coming from a Canadian.
The thing is, once you figure it out and you got a system, right? And if you're an American, this is even easier, because you're not going to have to figure out the screw ups that are going to slow you down, like just setting up the wrong kind of corporation. Financing is so much harder. Just all those little things, you don't have those same obstacles. And a lot of it was documenting my journey as I was going, as you just kept buying stuff. I did the podcast. It's been running since 2017. And just telling people what you're doing, not advertising, talking all in past tense, explaining things you've already done. And people will just contact you. You'll build relationships. You just start. It's not, hey, I'm trying to sell you something. It's, hey, what do you need help with? What is this? And honestly, the more you help people, the more overwhelmed they get. And they say, can you just do this with me? can you just do, they're like, there's more to this than I thought there was. And it's like a backward strategy. The more you share, the more people want to work with you. If you feel like if you're always holding your cards, you're keeping stuff back, people are going to be like, I don't know. I'm like, if I work with him, is he going to tell me what's going on? Is your relationship is off to the wrong foot when you start? It's so much easier just to start by sharing. And anyway, go ahead.
That's such a great setup for your story, man. And it's interesting because a lot of investors never think about leaving their own country, let alone their own state or own town. What was that aha moment where you realized that the U.S. market offered a better opportunity for cash flow and scalability?
I think it was learning, I guess, first about DSCR loans, right? And hard money, like that there wasn't going to be a scalable wall, like with doing, because I was doing conventional basically in Canada. They have different terms for it, but you're going to hit walls with lending. And they didn't have the same opportunities for that in Canada. It was the big one. The other one was landlord laws, where I live in Ontario. So landlord laws were tough. It was like California law or New Jersey law, not really
New York.
Yeah. Yeah. Not great for being a landlord. So evictions were taking 6 months. Like things were backing up. It wasn't going well. And there's so many opportunities, like the purchase prices. So you wanted to just buy like a rundown house anywhere. The prices just kept jumping like astronomically. Like when I first started buying, I was buying a lot of, they call them townhouses here. So like a row house. And semi-detached, which is like half of a duplex, right? Yeah. So I bought a lot of those because they were affordable, and I could pick them up for 180, 200,000. But even in the like 5 years of doing it in Canada, those same properties are now 500,000 for the exact same house. And you're like, I'm owning these, and you're like, the opportunity isn't. You think about how much equity you're holding. They're like, equity doesn't pay you anything. You need to sell it and get something better. Whenever you get too much of a raise in your equity, at least that's the way I look at it, because like your money could be working. I want to get a return on that 200,000 or 300,000 that's sitting in the house. I don't want it to sit there. But it got hard to buy anything, especially my mental well-being. I was like looking, I'm like, I used to buy these for 200. I'm like, how are people making this work at 500,000? I'm like, are they even cash flowing anymore? I'm like, it just didn't make sense. So the other thing, US dollar, right around 1.4 right now. So when I went down to the US, it was trading around 1.18. So 18% extra to buy the house. But this is the one thing everyone gets hung up on, Canadians. They'll go, even right now, 40%, right? I'm going to pay 40% extra for the house. Is it even a discount? Well, if you're doing this right, you're going to do some sort of strategy like a perfect BRRRR, refinance, get your money out. You're going to do a flip, and you're going to be making more than what you put in. If you're doing this right, you're not just, I don't usually say, hey, let's go buy some turnkey properties and hold them forever. I'm like, let's do something to try and generate some income for you. And so if that's the case, you're going to be pulling back larger amounts, or you can just, honestly, the better way to do it is to pull back your initial investment. If you need to pull back, keep your profit in the US, because then taxes are going to be better that way. Like taxes are cheaper in the United States than in Canada, right? That's another thing. Size of the US. 10x. You say, hey, I want to invest in Canada. And you're like, but I want to have a stable market. I want to have a market with a lot of jobs. I want to have growth. I want all these things. And you start going, how many markets are there in Canada? And it's like the big markets that you think of, like all the ones that have sports teams. You're like, there's
cities.
Yeah, there's 20, right?
I'm pretty sure that when you listen to those podcasts back in the day, where cranes go up. Today we had a real estate investor meeting this morning, and we talked about this. And where cranes start going up, you start going out. That's when you leave, because that's big boy game. And when you see the big boys come into town and start playing games, they're putting their cranes up, they're building their high rises, et cetera, et cetera. That's when the small investor usually gets pushed out and pushed to the sidelines or gets priced out, basically. So any of those major markets that you just mentioned, Toronto, Ontario, the big cities in Canada, it's hard to invest in those markets because the prices are so high and you won't see a return probably on your investment.
Yeah, it's a different kind of game you play. A lot of times you're playing, hey, we're going to break even every month or subsidize these people's housing, and this place will appreciate and we'll get money paid someday.
So you're playing on the equity growth, but that's not really a good play because you need to have cash flow and equity growth. That's the real name of the game in real estate.
And if you think about it, if you would have bought like last year and then we had a little dip, right? You're upside down on these places, right? You buy them for what they're worth. You're not buying them at a discount. You're not putting any sweat equity into them. You're not buying them. None of that stuff exists. And you're just hoping that the market goes up sometime. You look at the history, it should. What happens if something happens in your life? You get divorced. You need to sell the property. You don't have the time to wait for the market to be the perfect time. Medically, something happens. You need money. Like you have to sell the property at the wrong time. You just don't. I want to be buying properties where if I have to sell them on day two, I can at least cover all the realtor fees, everything, and be okay. I want to be able to at least get out of it. Ideally, I'm trying to buy stuff that I can renovate and push the value up quite a bit. But if just buying it at the actual value, it's dangerous. And what bails you out sometimes and makes people artificially believe that they're a really good investor is when you get like the end of COVID, when you get those, everything went up everywhere, no matter what. And it didn't matter if you did a renovation or not, or anything. It made a lot of people think that they were really good investors until things got tougher.
The last couple of years, everything's been a lot tougher. Me as a realtor, I can prove it by my numbers. I can show you my numbers. During COVID times, I was producing 4 or 5 times more than I am doing now.
Yeah.
I think I'm a pretty decent agent for my caliber and where I am in town. And still, it's like pulling teeth. Inventory's 6 times the inventory that it was in 2022.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the investors are like, hey, let's leave Florida. There's hurricanes here. Insurance is high. Taxes are high. Blah, blah, blah. They come up with all the excuses why to leave Florida. Where on the other hand, I think it's one of the best states to be in because what's happening in a lot of the sphere that's going on. Yes, we do get hurricanes, but if you get the right house, you don't really have to worry about hurricanes because when you get it in the right place and built the right way, it's not going to be demolished more than likely. And what is insurance for if not to replace your home if it does get demolished? And then you get a brand new home. Okay, now we start from scratch, but we got whatever I want to build.
This time when we build it, we're going to move it a foot or a meter higher off the ground.
Yeah, correct. Let's get it out of the flood zone, new code, everything's new code. We're going to do it. And that's the thing. That's why we have I know also we were the only open state in the United States during COVID. So a lot of people moved here to have their kids go to school, to be able to go to parks, to go shopping, to go whatever and live their lives normally. And now they're like, oh, I'm going to move back up north. I'm like, okay, but you're doing that at the same time everybody else is doing it. It's kind of like, why not wait a year or two or try to adapt to the Florida lifestyle and live it? That's just my 5 cents to that.
Yeah, even from your realtor perspective, during the high times, being the listing agent was the more valuable agent because you had the house, right? Whereas now, if you have buyers, I would think that you have a much more powerful position.
You're scoring all the time with a buyer now. And I've had, I think, 2 purchases in the last couple months with buyers. I had 2 sales with listings. I'll tell you what, my buyers, I brought them into the deal and both of them got phenomenal deals. Like, steals. And I'm like, this wasn't, not even in 2019, it was possible. You kind of got a good deal in 2019, 2018. It was like, okay, it's a good deal. It's not the best deal. But now, if you're a buyer and you're on the sidelines waiting the rates come down and prices come down, all that stuff, no, don't wait for that. Run in and you can negotiate that deal if you have a good agent on your side. And get a phenomenal deal. Get everything repaired pretty much on your laundry list of items of repairs. You can get concessions towards your closing costs. You can get your agent fees paid. If this market, or when this market, not if, when this market turns around and becomes a seller's market again, guess what's going to happen? All those bonuses that you're getting right now are going to all go away. And the seller's going to be like, you know what? It's my market. I'm not paying your agent's fee. You pay your own agent's fee. You know what? I don't want to give any concessions. Why would I want to do that? I don't want to repair anything because there's another 3 offers on the line. And that is the point where we're heading that way anytime. That can happen. It tilts. This is a market that's not only buyer's market. It's not only seller's market. Once it's a buyer's market, once it's a seller's market. It goes back and forth, just like the stock market.
Yep. And people are going to give the excuse when things are going high. And they're right after COVID, the prices are skyrocketing. When things are really going well, they're going to say, hey, it's about to pop. So I'm going to wait for it to drop. And then even they get the drop and then they go, I'm going to wait because I want it to be at the top because I don't want to be buying it. This is the time to buy. Like we're recording this the end of October. Like this honestly, if you're going to buy a property to renovate and sell or renovate and refinance, the highest comps you're going to get are the spring market. So this is the ideal time to buy. This is the time that you're seeing like the difference between the number of buyers and the number of sellers. It was out of whack, almost like 2 to 1 for a while there, where there's so many sellers, but it's trending to get closer, right? And if you look into the future, 18 months, 2 years, you're going to see it turn, right? At least we'll hit the bottom and be rolling right back up. Not that I'm going to saying that you're going to lose money on this at the time, just like you're saying, like you just buy it for the right price. You buy it with your stuff done. You create value. And honestly, if you were going to say, if you're going to step back and go, I'm going to take a time machine back to 2007, and you go, when would be the perfect time? Like 2007, things are just flying, right? Everything's going really well. That was a massive correction. This is not what we're doing now. I don't believe it's even anything close.
There's a correction.
Yeah.
We're having now.
Yeah. Whereas that was a end of 2009, we were already at the bottom and turning, right? And that was a massive correction that happened. We're not dealing with that kind of correction. It only took them, a year and a half to go through the bottom to start to turn. And if you're like, hey, if I wanted to hit this perfect, that's when you'd want to buy. If you wanted to make as much as you could possibly make, it's hitting it as you're hitting the bottom or as you're turning. Some people go, oh, we're 6 months from the bottom. I don't know about that. I know things slow down around like Thanksgiving and around Christmas in the US, but then you're going to hit the spring market. The spring market's going to come up again. So I think it's a perfect time to buy.
We're 20% over from last year in closed deals, and the prices are up 2.9% over last year.
Yeah.
So even if we're saying like, oh, we're going to wait for, this is the thing, guys, everybody listed high. And if you look at sold to sold comparisons, don't look at list to list comparisons or sold to list comparisons. That's the wrong data. You have to look at sold to sold comparisons. Sold to sold comparisons, we're up 2.9% in prices currently than we were last year. And we are up 20% in sales compared to last year, which is phenomenal because you could see the slow growth. Yes, we're still having more listing inventory coming to the market and we have buyers, but we are in a growth phase, which is good. Also, I have a really good example for you, Glenn. Just a couple days ago, we went on a contract for this house, 5-bed, 2-bath on the beach. You can see the ocean from the front yard.
Beautiful.
Okay, for $350,000 on the contract. This house, 2022, was $600,000.
Yeah.
And if you look at the peak of what it was, even if you take a discount from the peak, because that was really high prices, really low inventory, and you say, let's give it a discount of 20%. We're still up. And this doesn't really it needs new floors in 2 rooms. It has a new kitchen, has new roof, has new siding. I'm not kidding you. The guy that owns it had put a lot of money into it, but he wants to let go of it. So he gave it to us for a really good price.
Yeah.
And that's the case that you can pick these properties up now. Because there's a lot of people that are like, I don't want to worry about it anymore. I just want to let it go. He got it for a really good price too, so he's not losing any money on it. But there's people that are taking a haircut too. Like easy. I've seen a deal just today at the meeting. One of the girls showed me they're asking $299 now. She bought it for $354 in 2022. So she's taking a $50,000 haircut, and it's a 2-2 with a pool, and there's no showings. There's no interest in it. And I'm like, that's insane. What's the bottom line? Because it looks like it's going into an REO. So if it goes into an REO, what's the negotiated value there? What's that walking money that you're okay with? And can I pick it up at that and cash flow on it?
Yeah, no. Yeah, you can find those sellers that's honestly who you want to buy. Sometimes you can solve problems for them, right? Then if you can talk to them one-on-one, right? Like even what I usually do is if it's an agent listed home, I'll sign a BRA with the same agent so that they know they're going to get paid. I usually am specific on that contract to say that it's for this property because I'm buying stuff all over the place. So it's not covering anything anywhere. They know they're going to get paid if I do this. And then I can go and negotiate with them. I'm like, look, maybe I can take this over one way. Maybe keep you even on as a renter. You don't have to move your kids to a different school district. You don't have to uproot everything. Like maybe people got themselves overextended and maybe there's a solution here. And it's just a lot of times it's just sitting there being, comfortable, casual with them, and then figuring out what they need in order to do this. And honestly, if you can get good at that trait, it's going to be the trait that talking to people is so underrated, but it's the thing that's going to get you the best deals. Some people like to go out and just blanket people with the just lowball offers. That does work, but if you can talk to them, a lot of times that they'll understand. Like, you can get an understanding what you're trying to do, they're trying to do. You can just lay it right out. I like to say, hey, look, I want to take this over, and I know I could keep you in the property, like maybe keep you in here, what your idea is, what you're looking for. Ask that first. But I lost my train of thought. But anyway,
success rate is higher when you get to talk to them in person.
Oh yeah.
Than blasting everybody with the lowball offers.
Yeah.
So let's get the next step.
Oh yeah, sorry, we got way off track.
Yeah, we chatting here. two real estate guys. It never ends. Like, today's meeting was supposed to be an hour. It took 3 hours. So how did you actually do it? For most people, the idea of buying property across borders feels impossible. How did you navigate the early challenges in that? The taxes, the legalities, even building trust with people you'd never met face to face. How did you do that?
So I did it the wrong way and the hard way. It is the honest truth. Like I said, I didn't understand how to do it, so I just went as far as I could go and I did it. And if I was doing it again, I would leverage somebody else. Like, I teach a course. There's lots of people that teach courses on how to do this correctly cross border, but a lot of it was just making mistakes and ideally trying to not make as many mistakes before expensive mistakes happen. For instance, like when I first set up my first entity in the United States, I set up an LLC, a single entity LLC. And as an American, no problem. That's what they're used for. But as a Canadian, there's a cross-border issue that if we don't have an LLC structure in Canada, so we have like a corporation, which is more like a C Corp, and we are an incorporated business. And we also have limited partnerships, which is like a limited LLP, or we have an LLP in Canada, which is like an LP in the United States. So they have similar structure, but for an LLC, Canada Revenue doesn't know how to treat it, for instance. And so what they would do is Canada Revenue would go, oh, no one taxed that corporation, so we're going to tax it. And then you go, no, the IRS taxed me personally because it's a flow-through entity. And you're like, guess what? You got double taxed, but it doesn't come about until you sell the property. So I set it up. I knew I needed some protection, but it's something that can be fixed. You get your accountant, whenever they file your taxes, you can change how even if you keep the name of LLC, you can have it treated like a C Corp. You can have it treated like an LP. You tell the IRS how you want to be taxed, how you want this to go. And that paperwork is transferred to the CRA, and you basically are paid by my tax. And this is done properly. But a lot of the stuff, if you don't catch that on time, and say I did that, at the end, I just get double taxed. If I would have bought the property myself and just bought it in my personal name, there's a foreign tax called FIRPTA, right? It really comes up. Title companies in Florida are all over it, right? They are all over. Some states, they don't have enough foreigners or Canadians or Europeans. But Florida, for sure, every time I try to close, they try to tax me with the FIRPTA, even if I've set this up to not be taxed for FIRPTA, and which is a 15% withholding tax of the sale price, not of your profit. None of that. They don't care about that. And there is easy ways to get your money back, but they set this up just because people weren't paying their taxes. It's to protect the U.S. because people would just buy a house, vacation property, and never paid their taxes. But that if you are like my parents' neighbors, that's what they did. They went and bought a condo down in Florida. They'd do their snowbirding every year, live down there for a while in the winter and come back. And then they sold it, and they were like mad because they're like 15% just disappeared on the sale. And it's just little things like that. You don't need to do that. You don't need to pay that. You just have to set up your stuff properly. If you set your stuff up the way that the IRS wants it to be set up, the way the CRA wants to be set up, everyone's just going to be happy. And it's not going to be an issue. FIRPTA isn't a thing. But often, like I said, the title companies in Florida still love to try to tax you on that. And while it is, I usually have to send an email to my accountant, and I'd be like, hey, got another closing, and they're trying to charge me FIRPTA, even though we have this all set up that I'm FIRPTA exempt. And he usually just gives them a few things, check code, whatever in the IRS Act, this code. And if you're having a problem, here's my phone number. And then usually the attorney there calls my CPA. They have a discussion. They're like, oh, yeah, it just disappears off my HUD settlement statement, and away we go. But in most cases, that's not a thing. I just wanted to say that because I know a lot of Canadians love to go and invest in Florida. So it is a thing that does show up in Florida just because they're so used to Canadians.
Yeah, I'm Floridian. I've been through it a few times, so I know exactly how that goes. I had a guy that wanted to evade it, and totally, like the attorney was trying to evade it, like the person's attorney, and we hired our own attorneys, and at the end we got them to pay it. They were Italian, and they forfeit their U.S. citizenships prior to selling the property. And I'm like, why would you do that? Number one. And then have an attorney like kind of hound dog us about, can we do it like this or like this, like all sorts of weird ways to avoid FIRPTA. And I'm like, no, we don't want that responsibility on my buyers, because this is the thing. If you don't pay your FIRPTA, guess who will? The buyer that will buy the property is responsible for it in the downline. Not in your case because you have it set up the right way, but in the instance I had it or they were doing it, that's definitely would have been transferred to the next person. And we're not talking about a $150,000 house. We're talking about $3.2 million home.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a big 15% there. $450,000 we're talking about. It's not some jump change. That's a big cut. And it was expensive to hire the attorneys, but they went through it. Our original agreement was 3.5. We got the price down to 3.2 and they paid their FIRPTA. We actually came out pretty good at the end of the day.
That's good.
Because they weren't playing by the rules. So they were trying to evade the rules, and that's not good.
Even you're mentioning expats, right? And if you are planning to leave the US and go somewhere else, or you're planning to leave Canada and go to the US or go somewhere else, like here's a tip. Don't sell, or do sell your properties before you leave, because sometimes they qualify for exit tax, which could be whatever your state or province tax is. And it depends. They're all state and province specific, but I believe in Ontario, if you would do that and move to the US on your visa beforehand and renounce your citizenship as a Canadian, you're going to get taxed HST, which is 13% on that sale, which you normally wouldn't get happen because it's a principal residence. That doesn't even happen on commercial buildings. You've caused this by doing all these things in the wrong order. So a lot of it is, if you're going to do any of this, first of all, I'd say go get a coach, right? Because they're going to save you more than what it costs. And then second of all, get an attorney, a lawyer, a CPA, and get people, not just anyone, get one that specializes in what you're trying to do. If they're more expensive, it's probably for a reason. They probably know more about this and are going to save you more money. Like even for myself, I went, not quite the same, but I got my visa. I have my driver's license in the US. I have my social security number. With all of it though, there has to be a reason, right? So as a Canadian, you can go and invest in Florida, Texas, Ohio, wherever you want to go. And you don't need a social security number. You don't need all this stuff. And it has to, anytime I'm working with anyone, I don't believe in spending money that you don't need to spend. So I think it has to come to a point where, like when I decided to go get my visa for the US, it didn't come until I started getting really large tax bills from both countries. That also means you're doing a good business. But whenever you do, that's also when you realize that you should be spending some of that money on some attorneys and lawyers rather than taxes, because there's always a more efficient way to do this. And when you start and you get your first 2 properties, it's a non-issue. You get your first 10 properties, it's probably non-issue. But when you start getting up into properties, you need to restructure. You need to start planning ahead. And the thing is also, it comes down to your plan. How big do you want this to go? And if you go, hey, I'm planning on buying 50 properties, and then you go, okay, I usually don't want to spend the money ahead of time, but maybe in this case, it makes sense to spend the money. If you're going to put money into buying that many properties, then you have some money. So you could use that to do the significant investment in the United States, get your visa. And then guess what? As soon as you get your visa, go into the office, the Social Security office, get your Social Security number. And guess what? Now your lending is going to get better. So if that was the plan, it's not that different for Canadians in the US for leverage and for interest rates. But if you're going to do a lot of them, it adds up, right? It adds up and it makes sense to do it. So with a lot of this, it's just having that discussion. What do you plan on doing? What is it going to look like? And honestly, that's how you're going to determine what kind of corporate structure you're even going to set up. Like how heavy do you want to build this, right? You want to take liability away and you want to minimize taxes with your structure. But you don't want to spend a ton of money to do that unless there's a reason to do that. Or you build the structure, you talk to the attorney, and you say, this is what we're going to do, but how can I do this on the cheap to start and then easily add corporations or C Corps, LLCs, LPs into the structure later and make it compatible to actually add them in so I don't have to close down entities and restart entities, because you don't want to do that. And it comes down to tax planning and what states you want to even run these through, right? Florida, for instance, has no personal income tax, right? That's usually like one of the go-tos, but you also see like most people are going to go Delaware, Wyoming just for the animosity, right? They don't want people to know who they are, right? So you layer it and you have reasons for each layer of why you're doing stuff. So anyway, here's my long rant.
Layers too. Like Florida LLC can be held by a Wyoming LLC.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So there's ways of doing that. I interviewed a few people. You can watch my podcasts with a few attorneys that do these structures, and they protect your assets down the line.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fairly similar with Canada to the US, like even the way they would do it. The part where it gets really different is simple structures. Simple structures have to be done correctly. If you get into complex structures, they're fairly similar between Canada and the US. Just don't have an LLC on your top, right? It's basically and then it's just tax planning to make sure it makes sense. But if you get the typical answer, you go to your attorney and they say, hey, just set up an LP. And then you go, that means they're not listening to you. You should be getting some custom advice. Otherwise, pay the extra money because it's going to give you you should understand what's going on.
You could have asked ChatGPT for that advice.
Yeah, even ChatGPT will give you a much better answer.
That's gold, man. Now let's talk about the mistakes. You've interviewed countless investors on your own podcast, and I know you've made some discoveries the hard way too. What are some of the most common missteps Canadians make when they first invest in the US?
It also depends. I think the biggest one is this, which leads into a lot of different things, but it's trusting. And with everything, you got to trust because you're going to be working from a distance, but don't be stupid about it. Hey, I'm going to trust my realtor on the ARV, right, of the property, what the sale price is going to be if I'm going to flip this property. So yeah, you want to trust them, but I'm going to ask for a CMA. Like, where did you come up with that number? And I'm going to look through the comps to see if they're actually accurate. I know you're not one of these realtors, but I have heard countless stories about people, they look at the comps, or even my students, they bring in the sheet and we're looking through the comps. I'm like, you're buying a 2-1 and all your comps are 3-2s. And all your comps are brick and you're siding. And they have open concept and you're closed up. I'm like, you don't have comps yet. You trust, but do your own homework. Like, still, if you're hiring a complete stranger, you've made no relationship with the realtor yet. What's their motivation? They don't know if you're going to buy a second house. And a lot of times they want to say the sale. They want to make the sale, and so just trust yourself. When you go and hire a contractor, even if you're going to do like a construction loan with a DSCR lender or hard money lender or whoever you're using, they're going to protect their butts, which is going to protect you, because ultimately they don't trust that contractor. They don't trust the comps. They don't trust anything. And they're going to want it all verified. They want appraisals. They want everything to match up with their industry standards that they have set for that market, right? So they will help you. But at the same time, what are they not going to pay for? What they're not going to pay for is deposits to contractors. They won't pay for it. They pay for work that's complete. So what you want to do is build your structure or your plans out to try to minimize that, right? At least do that, get some draws, get some money, get some stuff moving beforehand, right? Because the money that's at risk is that money. That deposit money, when I hear people go, oh, I wired 20 grand to the contractor, I never heard from him again. And I was just like, what? Why would you do that? What information do you have on them? Can I review the contract you have with the contractor? I don't have a contract. Could you send me all their information? I don't have their information. I'm like, how are you going to do a civil suit? You don't have a contract. You don't have their information. Like, they're gone. Like, you skipped steps. You trusted people. You need to trust people. You can't work from a distance and not trust people. But you need to have somebody on your side to verify for you. I've paid realtors to just do site inspections. Like, hey, the guy just said he finished all the drywall. How about $100 if you can swing by there in the next couple of days and just give me some pictures and look for any spots that aren't drywalled or they missed mudding, anything that just doesn't look right. Could you do that for me? And if you get specific, you could get really anyone to do that. You could get the coffee lady at your property management company to go do it, because you're like, be specific. Go look at a roof for me, and they're putting a new roof on. Make sure they took the old one off. Can you get me some angle shots from the side? And I want to see different sides of shingles. The thing is, if you're not specific, they're going to go over there and they're just going to take pictures of the roof and some nice wide ones. It looks beautiful, but you're like, it didn't solve your problem. Like pictures when you're trying to sell a property, like with on the MLS, and pictures about construction that's ongoing are completely different. Like they're focused. They're looking at the little crack, the little trim that isn't right.
Definitely. I'm also a licensed contractor.
There you go.
I do videos, and one of the most recent requests was from the people that are doing our drawer, the lender that's doing our drawer, was videos of each progress. And I think that's a great way of protecting your asset in a way. Like if I were on that side, I would ask for that too. It's like, hey, I want to see the full video of the plumbing that was done.
Yep.
Make sure every piece of the plumbing is videotaped for me at completion so I can release the next drawer. And I think that's perfectly understandable and safe. I recommend to your listeners, as much as I recommend to my listeners, is to have that set up with your guys, like your lenders. Hey, Mr. Lender, ask for these specifically for me.
Yep.
And I'll ask for it too, but you should ask for it as well. And that way we are both protected. And if you're a good contractor and you put your money where your mouth is, you're going to take those videos and they're going to be good videos of what needs to be, what was done. So you could get your draw out.
Oh yeah. And you want to detail, right? You want to know how exactly what everything's doing. There's just a lot of these steps get skipped, right? And it's the details in your contract. So like a lot of times I'm working with a contractor. A lot of them, they have their own contract, but I usually like to jump the gun and get my contract over to them. And I send them this contract that's 14 pages long, and it is in depth. And what happens is if they sign it and send it back to me, we shouldn't be working together, because there's no way you should have signed that contract. It is way too one-sided for me. And the reason what I'm looking for whenever I send my contracts is I want them to tell me their weaknesses. So if it has all kinds of timeline stuff and penalties and bonuses and all these different things, landmark things that have to happen, draw schedules, if it's all detailed, and they're going to tell you that basically, they're not going to straight up tell you, but they're going to tell you what clauses they don't like in the contract. And then they're going to say, hey, I can't keep timelines. Hey, I can't keep meetings. Hey, I can't. And you're going to know who you're investing in. And that's what it is. Like the idea is to cut all these clauses out or go to the more simple contract. But what a good contractor is going to do is scratch it all up and tell you what all their weaknesses are, or where the actual timelines of this project, where the weaknesses are, and what's accurate. So that if you're doing a hard money loan, you're paying your 12% to them, you're not going to get sidelined with an extra 3 months on a renovation, because you've found an accurate time, what they actually believe they can do. And it really only works the first time with a contractor, because the second time they know what's coming and they'll just adjust all the timelines. They'll adjust everything with the way they're talking to you beforehand. And then you just go with that. You don't have to do this whole thing. But it works the first time, and it makes people honest. You're also going to be collecting all the information about them, so that if there is recourse, there is things that you can
email addresses, names, addresses on a contract. There's a lot of things that
licenses, IDs,
license numbers, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. Like I try to send over a contract for every person, even a small job. Is like, here's the contract. This. Sign it, send it back, It's
good for both sides, right? So say this happens and you go, like, from the contractor's perspective, they said they were going to pay me $10,000 for a roof. And then a roof. Sorry, I speak American.
Not every American says roof.
So anyway,
what states you're from?
It's one of those things I always like. I'm trying to, whenever I'm talking contractors and we're talking about that, I'm like, I try to use the roof. Anyway, whenever they give you that and you go and do the roof, and then you don't get paid, right? So you want to go put a construction lien on the property. Like, you now have pictures, you have a contract, like it's organized and put together to even put the lien on it. It's in both favors, both parties to do this, right? The only reason not to have it is, I don't know reason. It's more if you don't want to have the flexibility that you can be the contractor that doesn't have to finish the project, and And if you have to hire another contractor to finish the project, it's always more expensive than the first one. Always.
Oh yeah, because fixing other people's mistakes is always a lot more work.
Yeah. And you're going to find that if there's a reason that they didn't finish stuff and there's stuff that has to be redone, right? It's always more expensive. And they want to be paid for just trying to figure out, it's just troubleshooting how far they got along on this, right? Where it ended. Here's the scope, but you're like, this is what you think is done, or even what we open up walls and you find stuff. I had a property where one of the contractors, they put all the light switches in and they didn't connect them to the switches. They're just in the box behind it. You're like, it doesn't work when you flick them though. I know. Anyway, we're going on a rant about the contractors, but yeah, it's just being organized with everything. And the thing is, once you get this done, you can do it the same with the next person. You can do this in different markets. You can start to stretch this. You can start to scale this. You can bring on virtual assistants. I have virtual assistants. Mine are from Mexico. And if we're going to go down that path, I like Mexico because their English is usually pretty decent and they're in the same time zone or within a couple hours. So it's compared to other ones around the world. I have had other ones around the world. And the problem is they're working in the evening and you're like, they can't call anyone. They can't follow up on stuff. You're always 24 hours behind. Anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Philippines, for example,
yeah.
India, another one.
Depending on what you're having to do.
I love that you share all these lessons so openly, by the way. It's amazing. Because in business, experience really is the best teacher.
Yep.
Especially when it's someone else's experience. Now, you've mentioned before how the U.S. market is more landlord-friendly and tax efficient. For our listeners, can you break down why that is? What makes the U.S. system more attractive? And where do Canadians need to be careful to avoid double taxation? I know we touched on it a bit. But
yeah, that was a lot of different parts to that. What was the first part of it?
Why is it more landlord-friendly?
Okay, so the thing is, it's not all landlord-friendly. And that's one of the things that Canadians do make a mistake. You still do need to do your research, right? There's state to state, it's different legislation for how evictions are done, how rent raises are done. It is not, top of the line down. It's going to be state to state, right? So it's going to be different everywhere you go. Every province is a different, same sort of thing, right? So do your research, even because I live in Ontario, right across the border from Buffalo, right? So a lot of people are interested in going to New York, and New York is one of those unique places that has legislation for tenancy that is county specific. So if you want to buy in New York versus like Buffalo, New York, it has different laws, even though it's in the same state. So a lot of this, first of all, getting yourself in the right spot it's going to be important. Some people I always say, if you're used to dealing with Ontario law, and you're okay with that, then basically the world's your oyster. Like it's basically, at least the US is your oyster, because I still would say just avoid New Jersey and you're good. Besides that, I'm like, I think you could probably, some spots in California might be tough and New York is going to be tough, but in the most cases, you're going to be fine to go almost anywhere. But the thing is, if you're going to pick up and go that far, why not try to find something that's going to be the best tax-wise? You can look at states that have no personal income tax. That's one thing. The other thing is, though, I'm basically going to be running my stuff all through corporations. So for me, that's not as important. I want tenancy law. I want to be able to do evictions. I want to be able to do rent raises on renewals. I want those sort of things. I want to be trying to do this the most PC way, but the general rule is red states. And I'm trying to avoid saying that, but it's tenancy law typically is better in red states, but it's not a hard rule. There is still exceptions to it, but it is a way. Like, you could start off by just going to ChatGPT or Google and get some ideas about it. But with any of it, don't just trust Google. Go talk to somebody, talk to realtors, talk to property managers, talk to people who are actually in those states. Ask them how long it actually takes. If you're like, hey, we can do evictions on day 5 or day 3 of the month. That's great, but what is the actual practice for that for property managers? Because that's one thing I found out when I was working in Missouri was we could do an eviction at day 5, but it was typical to not do anything until day 15. It's just an industry standard. Even though the law was in their favor to do it on 5, they always waited till 15 to start sending notices out. So sometimes and that's the thing, you Google it, it's going to say day 5. So if you're going to compare day 5s to day 5s or day 3, you're comparing inaccurate information.
You could do day 1 in Florida.
Yeah.
Day 2 in Florida. Like first day is okay, they didn't pay the first day. You could go the next day and post
give a 3-day notice or
3-day notice, and then they're out in 2 weeks basically.
Yeah, I was just giving an example like of other different states.
Yeah.
No.
It's one of the best states, I think, to do it, but it's getting expensive. And your margins are not there anymore as they were like 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
Now let's fast forward to today.
Okay.
You build not just a portfolio, but a platform. Canadian investing in USA has become a top resource for thousands of investors. What motivated you to start teaching others? And what's been the most rewarding part of building that community?
So when I started teaching, this is not like how most people start teaching. I was doing the podcast, and I will drop this name because I am very thankful for this guy, but I used to talk to Joe Fairless fairly regularly, who was out of Cincinnati. He does a lot of Texas stuff. But anyway, I was talking with him regularly, and he told me, document your journey. That's why the podcast started. Document your journey, share your journey, and people will be interested in your journey because there isn't anyone else at this time doing this, showing how to do it in the US. And that's honestly how it started. I had one of my best friends who's a graphic designer for a big ad agency, and he did all the graphics, and he still does all the graphics for it. And he told me, I didn't see that you're going to do this for more than like 10 weeks. He's like, didn't see this actually turning into anything. But I was just like, okay, I'm just going to start. It's going to be awful. The first episodes are horrible. I can't even listen to them. And we're just going to go and do this. And what happened is after you do it for a few years, you get started. Even actually, I think I started my first speaking gig was 4 months after starting the podcast. People wanted to start speaking at real estate meetups, talking about what you're doing about the US. And then the podcast started to grow. And I had 5 people that approached me and said, teach me how to do this. And I was like, I'm actively I'm buying houses and stuff. I'm like, it's not my thing. I'm like, at the time I had a big problem with coaches. I thought that it was a sleazy business, as terrible as that sounds, but I'm like, it's not what I want to do. I want to do
that too at first before I started getting coaching. And now I think it's the best things in the world.
But I had this like wrong mentality about it, right? And I was like, no, I want to just do it. And you can listen to my podcast. No, you get little tidbits about what happened and what I did and stuff, but it wasn't like the full story. And they're like, no, we'll pay you. These 5 guys, we'll pay you to do this. And they're like, how much do you want? And I'm just like, I don't know. What do you want? $200, something like that. And we'll do. I think the first one was like 6 weeks and $200, and we'll sit down for 6 weeks for, I don't know, hour and a half every week, and we'll just teach you everything I know, and we'll just go from there. And that's how it started. And then they told me
yourself.
No, and they told other people, and then I'm like, okay, maybe we have something here. And so I waited a while, and I originally was just teaching it like I had a bunch of point form notes. And I did the course like that for a year. And then I'm like, okay, then that was working good. But then I'm like, okay, let's get organized, slides, do the whole thing. And you're like, now that's working good. But then I went, you know what isn't working good? Success rate. I'm like, I want every single person to win and go get something, please buy anything, even a turnkey property, buy something. I want everyone to do it. And I was like, why aren't they all doing it? Like, I taught them how to do it, and I started following up, and I'm like, they're all scared. Like, it's honestly the people, some of them go and just go crazy. And then there's a whole bunch that are just scared, and they just weren't doing anything. So I stopped.
That's human nature, man.
Yeah. Stopped for 9 months. I followed up, and pulled away. I went and talked to my coach because I was hiring a coach, and I talked to my marketing coach because I have another coach. And so I talked to the 2 of them, and we basically brainstormed, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make the whole course videos, and I'm going to spend all my time helping them with underwriting, helping them dealing with that contractor lien, helping them do a market analysis, helping them with whatever they wanted to do, just strategizing what strategy would work for the kind of cash flow they want based on the amount of money they have. And that's what I wanted to do. Instead of me spending all this time speaking the exact same stuff every single time I teach a class, every time I start a cycle of classes, let's just record that, and then let's go through and do stuff. And then I watched the success rate go. And then I actually started limiting who could even come in. I say, hey, are you like, what I'm looking for are people to take action and win. And if you're not interested in that, I don't want you in the course because you're going to screw up my stats, because I want the stats to be top notch. So if you say, hey, I'm going to do it, I don't make you sign anything, but if you say, yeah, I will do this, I will do the work, and explain exactly how much work it is, what you're going to do. And then that's how you get that's how the coaching program grew. Because then they told other people because they got one, and then that's how it grew. And up until, what was it, 4 months ago, I didn't even run Facebook ads, Instagram ads. I started doing it now, but only directly to my own Facebook group. Those are the only people that get the ads because it's honestly, it's cheaper and it's focused. I don't want to blast everyone. I'm not that kind of guy.
Oh yeah, that's an amazing journey there. And since you have your finger on the pulse for both Canadian and U.S. markets, any state, cities, or asset classes that stand out for you going into 2026?
I think it's always like you hear the same markets showing up, right? And what I always like to say is it depends on the strategy you're trying to do, right? You can go and flip anywhere. You can go do BRRRRs anywhere. You can do long-term rentals, short-term rentals. You can do these anywhere and it will work. But if you start comparing stats and you'll say, I'll list a city because I don't want to blacklist anybody or any cities, but you go and I've been throwing New Jersey under the bus all the time, but you go and do like a rental in New Jersey versus a rental in Cleveland, right? Or Newark versus Cleveland, then what you're going to find is it's going to have a different rent to value ratio, right? It's going to have that 1% rule, which I don't like at all. It's not a good metric that I don't like to do, but you're going to see a different cash flow in just a long-term rental. So you're going to find that certain markets are going to work better for long-term rentals. You're going to find some work better for short-term rentals. Like I said, I don't like to, especially on podcasts, give out specific markets. I'll tell you where I work, but I do different strategies in different cities, and I do specifically. So I'll give one example, like for Jacksonville, that is a market that would work for rentals and for flips. I only do flips there, though. I've never owned a rental in Jacksonville. I only do flips there. But places I do invest was Jacksonville, Space Coast, Kansas City, Missouri, Indianapolis, Dayton, Toledo, Cleveland, Birmingham, Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama, San Antonio, Texas. Am I missing? I think I'm missing. Detroit, Michigan. Anyway, and they all have specific things that work best. And there's a reason I want each one. But when I bring people into the course, when I'm like, I want you to do the exercise. I'll show you the numbers that I have for these markets. And then it's just a link. You want to add in Milwaukee. I don't know anything about Milwaukee, but you can go to the links and it'll take you into the back end of Redfin or Zillow or all the different spots. And it gives you the direct link, put in the address, fill the number in. The address, phone number, it just lights up red, yellow, green, and you'll know, hey, compared to other markets, is it a good cash flow market or whatever? And you can basically then get as specific as you want. You're like, hey, like for say Dayton, Ohio, right? You're like, it works. These are the numbers that work really good in Dayton. But you're like, what if I just went outside of town to Middleton or Miamisburg? Or what do those look like? Are they the same? Even though they're like still in Montgomery County, you're just outside of town. Do they work the same?
Got you. Before we wrap up, let's talk about the future. Where do you see your investing journey heading next? Are there new strategies or partnerships on the horizon for you?
I still love the single family stuff and single family duplex and fourplex. So we still do lots of those. But what I started doing, I bought a larger 100 plus unit building in Tampa, and I've been looking at doing more of the larger multifamily stuff. The hard part about doing that is you get paid someday, especially as being a GP. You get paid someday, at least the way I structure mine. So the way I live off of the residential stuff, because it's faster moving and stuff like that. You can flip a house a lot quicker than flipping an apartment building. But there's going to be a lot more larger buildings because it's how you make a lot of wealth, but it takes a lot, like 5 years to do it instead of just flipping something in 3 months or 6 months.
Awesome. Let's hit the quick round. Table rapid fire.
I'll try.
That's your market for Canadian investors in 2025.
If you can make it work, I love Huntsville, Alabama. Probably easier to do Kansas City, Missouri. That's where I'm liking right now. I know you're Florida, sorry.
Sorry. Biggest myth about cross-border investing?
That you're going to get double taxed, you're going to get screwed, and they're going to run away with your money. It isn't something that actually happens. There's lots of very nice people that will help you set up a lot of things.
One tech tool that's changed your investing game?
CRM. keeping organized. It helps me organize everything. You can use Google Drive, whatever. You need a system, just something to keep you really organized.
Worst piece of advice you hear people give?
Oh, wow, that's worth
a lot.
There's lots of terrible advice. What the worst? It's not very rapid, Glenn. Come on.
You're doing good.
That you're going to get arrested crossing the border. That's not true at all. It's rampant, but it's not true at all.
Okay, that really fits in here.
I don't know.
Finally, what does financial freedom mean to Glen Sutherland?
Financial freedom means I used to have a job working for a major American company that operates worldwide. And I could not put my kid in hockey or sports because I worked crazy shifts, weekends, and everything else. Now I control my time. I do all of my calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I do my work on Wednesdays, and ideally, unless there's overflow, I try to take off Mondays and Fridays. And I go to all my kids' sports, and I am present. That's financial freedom. Is I still need to be busy. I'm not good at just sitting around, but I have time freedom and I have the flexibility to move appointments to make what I want to do happen.
Glen, it's been a pleasure having you here on the Real Estate Roundtable. Your story proves that borders are just lines on a map. Opportunities exist wherever you're willing to learn, plan, and take action. For everyone tuning in, if you want to dive deeper into Glen's world, check out his podcast, A Canadian Investing in the USA, on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. You can also join his Facebook group and grab his free guide, Top Mistakes Canadians Make Investing in the USA. As always, I'm your host, Lancelot Lenard, helping you build wealth, create freedom, and shape your real estate story one conversation at a time. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this episode. And until next time, keep your mindset strong, your strategy smart, and your investments working for you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Sir Lancelot's Real Estate Roundtable, where we've unveiled the mysteries of real estate together. Remember, in this kingdom of possibilities, every dream home is just a discussion away. I can help your real estate dreams come true. Just call me at 786-449-7518. Until our next roundtable, may your ventures be prosperous and your homes be filled with love and joy. Farewell, fellow knights of real estate.